Hello, everyone. Welcome to Achieving Success with Olivia Akin. I am your host, Olivia Akin. Each week, we will discuss the roadmap of achieving your personal and professional success. We give you real life stories on growing personally and professionally to achieve your life and career goals with the help of some top notch guests. Today, we are speaking with Scott Kaiser. Scott is the owner of the Entrepreneur's Source. Scott is a career transition coach dedicated to empowering individuals seeking self sufficiency and new challenges. Whether frustrated with their current job, facing unemployment, or considering a career change, Scott specializes in guiding clients through the process of exploration and discovery. Through a no cost, no obligation process, he helps clarify goals and explore alternative career options outside the traditional job market. Join Scott, where he's committed to helping clients take control of their lives and create the income, lifestyle, wealth, and equity they deserve. Remember, it's not just about how long you live, but how you live. You can find Scott on LinkedIn by searching Scott Kaiser or going to his website, skaiser.esourcecoach.com, or emailing him at skaiser@esourcecoach.com. Hello, Scott. It's fantastic having you on the show today.
Oh, Olivia, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
I am so excited because in a time of uncertainty in all of our lives, we don't always know where to turn or how to ask for help or what the next step is going to be. And I'm really excited to dive into that conversation more with you today. But to start off the show, can you tell me what success means and looks like to Scott Kaiser?
Success can be defined, by many avenues. So many people think, success is just about having more stuff, more money, things like that. And, when I was in my corporate career, I was very successful financially, but I wasn't fulfilled. And I really believe that success without fulfillment is really the ultimate failure. And what I mean by that is that, we can work and work and work all day long and become successful and have lots of stuff. But if we're not truly fulfilled, what is the purpose of that? And really, when we talk about success, what is success? Success is really just hitting an expectation. That's all it is. If you want money, anybody can make money, any age, any, gender, you do X, you get Y, but sometimes we need to trade that expectation in for appreciation. And if you can do that, it's a whole new world. So for success for me, I like to appreciate every client I'm working with, appreciate my family, appreciate my children, my wife, my fitness, everything with that. And once I can do that, that's kind of what success means to me.
And I really like how you bring up the aspect of fulfillment because it really aligns with the aspect of transition. Because a lot of us start to question if we're in the right spot when we start to feel unfulfilled or we feel stuck where we are and not knowing what else is out there. And I think a lot of times we get so wrapped up in everything else going on, we forget to ask or are scared to ask what else is out there and what are those other options until you really sit down with someone who goes, okay, have you thought about this? Here are options. This is what it could look like. And it's just about asking yourself that question and going, okay, let me have the broader conversation that can help you towards transitioning into something that makes you feel more fulfilled. Scott, you had brought up how you yourself worked in corporate prior to starting your business. So, what inspired you to start your business and transition out of corporate?
Well, when my background is in wholesale food distribution, business development, outside sales, multiple companies, multiple states. And, like I mentioned, I was very successful in what I did. But what I found value in is that I was always the person that got the new trainee. I was asked to lead training classes. I was helped to mentor people. And that's what I found fulfilling, was doing that, seeing somebody rise from being hired to maybe even one day being my boss. But at the end of the day, it was, I kept busting my butt so somebody else could live their dream. And I thought, there were some personal things that happened in my life that I'm like, I've got to be able to spread the word, get people unstuck. How can I do that? And kind of find that niche in the career field where I'm not job recruiting. I'm not trying to find people and I'm not selling anything. I'm not trying to sell you a business or a franchise. I'm just trying to find out what is that next step. Like you mentioned, people are stuck and they don't know where to turn. Well, that's where I kind of step in. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about your goals, your needs, your expectations. What kind of income, lifestyle, wealth, and equity goals do you have? And what pathway is that? And for most people, it may be another job, but let's be a little bit uncomfortable and talk about that. And listen, as an entrepreneur, it's not easy. It's always a challenge, but that's kind of why we get up in the morning. Let's fail forward. And it's just I found this great niche where I can help people and bring value to them. And as we can add value to people's lives, ultimately wealth will follow.
And I think it's so important to highlight there as well that not everyone you talk to when they're feeling stuck, it means that you have to transfer into a whole new industry or a whole new job title or even starting your own business. But you really need to have that hard conversation with yourself and with the people around you. Who are your team? Who is your team? Right? You kind of take it from the aspects of sports. No one player could achieve a winning game by themselves as much as they might want to say they can. You can't. You need a team. So who are those people you can find in every day? Who are those mentors you use? Really go, what do I like? And let me have conversations with people. Because also, and Scott, I'd love to get your opinion on this. The second you start speaking and having conversations about what you're uncomfortable with or how you're feeling stuck or potentially where you want to go becomes more real. And there's that level of accountability that go, okay, now we're really having this conversation. It's coming to light. And here's tasks or kind of different aspects to start thinking about next steps.
Correct. Correct. And really when I'm having uncomfortable conversations and I want to back up a little bit is that what I like to be with my clients is their ally and not their friend. The difference being is an ally really wants the best for somebody, but we'll call them out when things start to go sideways. Sometimes a friend, not all, but sometimes friends will take your excuses and justify them. That's where you're going to stay comfortable, and that's where growth doesn't happen. And so where I step in is like, let's have some uncomfortable conversations. I have tools that I do send my clients. I do hold them accountable to get those things back to me so we can have those conversations to talk about really your you 2.0. You're in 1.0 now. What is 2.0? And let's look about it. Let's get excited about it. But ultimately, things will kick in. Those F words, fear being the big one, friends and family, finances. I mean, there's so many of those things. And that's what we're going to talk about. And we're going to uncover that. But fear is really the big emotional factor that kicks in once a client's taken that journey of that journey of discovery with me.
And Scott, I want to back up a little bit to, when someone initially comes to you and starts talking to you, what are those conversations typically like? And how do you really start the process, whether they become a client or not, of asking the questions and going, okay, I'm going to be your ally. This is what needs to be asked, or this is what I think you're saying to move forward in one of these pathways?
Excellent question. Really, that initial call with the client, first and foremost, I want to know where they're at in their career journey. Uh, it's not it's not new news. Layoffs are bad right now, and they're not getting better. 60 to 70% of my clients are out of work. And it wasn't due to anything they did wrong. It was about corporate America stepping in and restructuring or private equity getting involved, whatever it may be. So for me, I just want to know where they're at in their career journey. Let's talk about it, where their next steps are, where they want to go. A lot of people, actually, most all my clients are looking for another job. I'm kind of there to step in and say, well, let me learn a little bit more about you. let's talk about what your next steps are. Is that staying in corporate America? Because corporate America has an expiration date right now. We just don't know where it is. We don't know when it's coming. And so that initial call is for me to get the client talking about their career journey. Then I will step in and share a little bit more about what I do. Most of my clients that are coming from, LinkedIn is a big part, some resumes. They think I'm a job recruiter. Once I explain a little bit about what I do with, how I'm kind of that career unicorn, you can almost see, wow, this is kind of nice. I finally have somebody in my corner to guide me on that next pathway without trying to sell me something, or, because a recruiter has an obligation to a business to put a client into. I have an obligation solely with my client, not any businesses that I have in my network, if that helps.
I think it helps a lot. And it really is you coming from what is the best interest for that individual. And each individual is different. Like you've mentioned previously, is really everyone's need is different, and meeting people where they are today and going from there. So, Scott, for you, as you start working with clients, how do you say, okay, this is where you're at, whether you might want to hear it or not, and now let's figure out a path to work forward? And how do you make sure, due to the fact everyone's experiences are different, what they bring to the table is different, where they are today is different, that you really customize each conversation to that individual and their experiences working with you?
Another great question. For me, it's a lot of listening. And I also give them homework. And that's what we talk about on the next call. This journey, what I call a journey of discovery to find that point of clarity, is the client's journey. It is not mine. I'm here to walk side by side with them. So as we have a conversation, especially if they want to move on past that initial call, is we're going to talk about, and I have an assessment that I share with my clients that they're required to do. It comes back to me and we talk about it. And it talks about how they do the things they do, why they do the things they do, and maybe some things that may be holding them back. And we talk about that one-on-one. I share the assessment with the client and uncover some things that, hey, this may be what's holding you back from that next step, whatever it may be. It's their journey, it's not mine. And so it's a lot of listening, a lot of, okay, well, we're going to do this assessment next week. I also want to know, how many applications did you apply for? How many job interviews did you get? Let's talk about that. How did that make you feel? A lot of clients will get an offer or a job offer and they'll be like, I don't know if this is really what I want to do. Because ultimately, the decisions that we make are the most important things we do in our lives, because it will tell us where we're going to be in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. Life's not guaranteed. We all know that. But it's important when we're making those decisions, whether it be another W-2 job, whether it's becoming an entrepreneur, let's make sure that we're making these right decisions. And I also include a lot of conversations with married couples that have a spouse. Let's have, and I work with a lot of husband and wife teams. Let's talk about the journey, because ultimately this is a pathway for both of you if entrepreneurship is the right way for you.
And I think it's so important to really go, okay, what is the pathway? Understand that the decisions we do make today, and even not making a decision is making a decision, will affect what we do tomorrow, how we show up, whether we're happy and present, or we're at something. Let's say I'm somewhere with Scott, but I'm too wrapped up in everything else going on, so I'm not actually present down the road. It can tell us and shape us in so many ways. And I know that firsthand, because there's things, and I joke, and Scott and I've talked about this, of where I've gone, uh, I was born in the South in summer, like the Northeast is the coldest I'll get. And now I've moved to Alaska for 2 years. And it's like, yeah, I would have never done that if it wasn't for leaving corporate, starting my own business, and going, now I have options of where I live and how I show up to work. I've gotten uncomfortable and done things and had hard conversations with people, and I didn't think I'd be able to in that way and show up in those ways, but I was able to do that. So if I'm able to do that, I could do this. And your perspective really shifts. But if I was in corporate, I don't think my mindset would have been in the same space. So really making those decisions. And Scott, how do you see that play out with clients as well as they start to have those conversations, talk to you about things, start to go, okay, my perspective's changing. I don't know how I feel about this. How do you guide them through that and really kind of informing that is inevitable at the same time?
Yeah, and that's perfect. And, kind of back to your story about leaving corporate America, can you imagine the cost of if you didn't do that
Mhm.
and where you would be right now? And that's what I call the opportunity cost. We don't think about the things we don't do. And there is a cost effective, associated with that. Like you said, not making a decision is a decision. So when we're navigating our next pathway, whether that be another corporate job, entrepreneurship, whatever it may be, we're not thinking about the cost of not doing this and when the impact that that may have. And that's where that big, F word kicks in, fear. Fear's got a lot of acronyms. I really like the one that says false evidence appearing real. When people get really afraid of something or fear, it's a simple question that I ask. Is this something that you know, or is this something that you feel? Most of the time, it's something that they feel. Because if it's something they know, let's get the answers to that and get rid of that. But fear is this massive ocean that's infinite. You can't see the end of it, but it really is only a half an inch deep. You just got to jump in and find out, well, this isn't too scary. And then failure kicks in. What if I fail? Well, if you're not failing at anything, you're not trying. I mean, I fail every day. I mean, we all do. That's how we get better at things and we learn. So it's really, trying to understand the client's fear and failure. And then friends and family can kick in too. And that's where I get involved with spouses, that, oh, you shouldn't, you shouldn't do this. Well, they're not on the journey with us. So let's get them on the journey and let's talk about that. So,
And I think it's really important to bring in those friends and family because sometimes, and I hate to say this, but I think it is true. And Scott, you could jump in if you think I'm wrong. But and you kind of just touched upon it. Your friends and family can be your biggest advocates and supporters, but if someone doesn't understand the path you're on or why you might be deciding to leave corporate to jump into the unknown of starting your business, they're going to be like, why are you doing that? Like their goals might be different and what they deem successful to them in that moment might look different than where you are. So their perspective of like, you shouldn't be doing that right now. Why would you do this versus that is based on what they perceive as the goals that they want to achieve and where they want to go versus going, that might not be fit for someone else. And until you have that conversation and go, here are the benefits, this is what the process would look like, let's get to the nitty gritty. I don't think you'll really get that connection and full on boardness. And I might have just made up that word, but but like you won't get the full support until you bring your team together and have those conversations.
that's such a great point. And I'm not sure of your journey, but my journey when I decided to leave, a multi six figure job, corporate America, my friends and some of my family members were trying to be like, what? I don't get this. Why are you doing this? You make great money. You get 3 weeks a year or 3 weeks a year vacation. I mean, this is great. And I started really thinking about it, that there is no bigger waste of time than listening to people that don't have what you want. And I'm like, I'm sitting here at a restaurant at a bar having beers with friends of mine, and they're telling me not to do this. I'm like, well, they don't have anything I really want. So why am I even listening? And so it really comes back to, and you got to be careful. And that's why it's important, especially the spouse, let's bring them in the conversation. Because there's been a lot of times where a client's journey has gone completely sideways because they haven't included their spouse in the conversations. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk to them. I work with a lot of, I've got a client right now. I started working with the husband miserable in his corporate career, but he just thought, I can't quit. But my wife is miserable as a teacher. So now I worked with her, and now she's actually going to be launching an entrepreneurship business in the home staging business. Really fun, exciting business. And that's what's powerful about this is get everyone involved early on in the process. But it is the client's journey. It's not mine. If a client takes, I worked with one client for over a year, some are as quick as 6 weeks. So
And, you know, for me too, and you brought up my journey, it was a little different, but the same, because I was actually part of the Lockheed Martin mass layoffs. I'd already started my business, I'd already started the podcast, it was doing very well. And months later, on a Tuesday afternoon where layoffs were supposed to be over, it was about my annual raise. It became a conversation at 4 o'clock in the afternoon of like, actually, we have more layoffs coming and you're part of them, even though we had told you, like, you're not losing your job yesterday. Actually, today it's different. And I immediately got offers from other teams within Lockheed Martin for more money than same or more than I was already making because of my past backgrounds. When I went into a meeting for a organization I volunteer for, I sit on the international board for the Association of Supply Chain Management, and I run a state chapter. And I was in a room and everyone was like, Olivia, we've been wanting you forever. Like, send us a resume. We will start working for you. Like, we will bring you on. Like, let's have the conversation. And that was the moment where I was like, okay, everything's going to be okay. I have options. Um, but what do I truly want? Like, have I been fulfilled in this? Do I want to continue waking up every day and working for 8+ hours in a corporate environment, doing things that I might feel could be done differently, or feeling like my voice isn't being heard and making that impact? Or do I take this opportunity? And that's why I took my opportunity and said, you know what, I'm going to just do my business full time. But bringing in family and having that discussion of like, this is what it could look like, this is the path, was very important. And even going, like you said, Scott, of knowing who to listen to sometimes when they're in your ear going, why are you doing this? I've had lots of conversations with people when I was starting out and said, I'm not picking up another job. They're like, you have offers, you've guaranteed money on the table, right? As an entrepreneur, there's no guaranteed money on the table. And they're like, why would you leave that for this? And I'm just like, I know the path. I know this is what I meant to be. But then even taking it a step further, when we talk about bringing spouses in, even if you don't have a spouse when you're starting the journey, I think it's really important to be transparent with them as you're going through the journey. And that is one thing, Scott, I'd love to get your opinion on, because that's what I did. When I got really serious with my boyfriend, I opened the books. I was like, this is what it looks like. Here's the cost, here's the expenses. If we're going to be getting a home together and doing these things, here's the business expenses. So, and there's full transparency of like where the wiggle room is. If you have an innovative idea to cover, how I might be able to do this differently, like, please bring it, because you're a part of my team, right? Your spouse
yes.
is a part of your team. And so you have to kind of have those conversations, whether it is with a boyfriend you're moving in with, or your wife that now are getting married, or you've been married for X amount of years, because it also, I think, takes away some of the uncertainty and miscommunication between relationships as well.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. Part of my, to kind of circle back to, earlier in this podcast, you had mentioned, the initial call. That initial, if they're married, if they are married, what does your wife think about, your next step? And I get to learn right from the beginning. I had a client that I had an initial phone call with. This was over a year ago. burned out in his corporate career. And I told him, I said, hey, I want to set up a Zoom call on our next meet. But I want to talk more about your spouse. Oh, well, she may join us. And I'm like, perfect. We got to the Zoom call. They were in Washington State. And I'll never forget this. The Zoom call, the screen came up and there was him and there was her. And I said, Amanda, it's a pleasure to meet you. I talked to Sean the other day about his career journey. And she like put her hand up and said, I want a list of references. We are not moving forward until I have a list of references. I don't know who you are. And I was just like blown away. I was like, perfect. I mean, I'd be glad to connect you with some past clients. You can look at my testimonials on LinkedIn, my recommendations on my website, things like that. And the call ended. And I got a text from about 3 days later from my client, Sean, and he goes, okay, we're ready to continue, but we're going to do this together. And I said, perfect. And they have turned out, I like to say my clients are my allies, not my friends. They are actually my friends. They are the most wonderful people. And he just launched his business, a coaching consulting business about 4 months ago. And she actually is his like executive assistant. So that's the greatest thing, is being able to get the spouses involved really early. And there are spouses that'll be like, nope, John's going to get another job. This is that, and this is that. And hey, that's fine. We'll talk about it. So
For you, as you're navigating with someone, whether their journey is 6 weeks, like you had mentioned, or 6 months, a year, I know you've had clients for a year, longer sometimes. For you, how do you really work with someone to sit in their emotions as they're making their decisions, and really are that sounding board, but accountability? Because when you're on someone's transitional journey with them, whether it is to another job or owning their own business, there's a lot of emotional intelligence that has to go into that as well. From your aspect, Scott, especially because you're guiding with them, and you have to really be able to read the body language, the tone, the how they're feeling, and be able to take them through that. Because sometimes it isn't just the fear, it's, and kind of what we've said in the past, the other voices that are coming in that start to go, okay, now this is overwhelming, or where do I turn? So how have, especially with your clients who have that range of stories and background and everything, handle the emotional intelligence side of things, and really going, okay, even though I might be having a shitty day today, I have to show up for my client the way they need me to show up. And that call, at 10 a.m. was really draining, and like drained me, but now I have to show up for my 11 very differently. So how do you gauge that throughout your day?
yeah, there are days, almost every day, especially at the end of the day, where it's, I have a lot of respect for therapists, because I really am a career therapist a lot. And I have a lot of respect for listening to people's stories. But it's really how to walk in front of a client or behind a client. I'm going to be right side by side with him. Olivia, we may have an agenda at the 11 o'clock call, and the virtual meeting, the Zoom will come up. And within 30 seconds, I'll know we're not even going to go down this pathway that we planned on. We're going to talk about what's going on because something happened, and it's usually, most of the time it's like, oh, I thought I was going to get this job and they turned me down and I don't know where to go. And for me, it's about, well, let's just talk about that. Maybe that was a sign that you shouldn't be going down that pathway. And so, but the reason I was chuckling is, yeah, there are times where, you know what? And in the beginning as an entrepreneur, I was taking my clients' life stories and making them my own, and it was emotionally draining. And so what I really do is, once the call's over, I put my notes in and I move on, because every client's journey is different. But there are times where at the end of the day, you're emotionally drained and you've got a brand new client that jumped on your calendar, and it can light up your entire day, like light up your day. And so it can be a little draining at times, but this is what I signed up for. This is what I love doing. This is why I get out of bed every morning. This is why I have the flexibility to, if I wanted to come to Alaska and have coffee with you. I could bring my laptop, and do my work from there. This is the business that I chose, and it's not right for everybody. So, but yeah, it's great. That's a great question. That's why I was chuckling.
And I
Yeah.
think it's something too, and you touched upon it. I will say, as an entrepreneur, one of the many rewarding things is going, especially being fully virtual with my clients as well. And the podcast is like, I can go somewhere. I can make the decision and go, okay, Monday, I'm not taking any calls. I will do my work in the morning. And then there's this event going on. I'm going to that. Or this is really important for me to show up for my friends in this way or family. And we're going on a family trip. So for the 2 days, I get to decide we get to take off, or I can work a half a day in Orlando or in Texas and do my speaking job and then work in between that. Like whatever it looks like, as an entrepreneur, you really get to shape that. But I also say, and Scott, as I'd like to get your thoughts on this, is as you work with a client, when you think of what you want your business to be, if they decide the route of entrepreneurship, I really think you have to take the time to reflect on the lifestyle you want and what that should look like. Because if you do a brick and mortar store, for
Oh,
example, I'm throwing this
mhm,
out there. If you do brick and mortar, you have to be there. If you close the
mhm.
building, you want to go on vacation and you don't have your team set up yet, or you are a solo entrepreneur, so you have to be at your brick and mortar store. Well, that's going to affect how you do things long term, or potential hours of the business, or this or that. When you're virtual, you have different capabilities. So, how do you walk with people on their journey and deciding if entrepreneurship is the right way to think the strategy they're building more long term than just like, okay, this is the next step?
Mhm. That's awesome. And the four things we focus on is income first, lifestyle second, then wealth and equity. So, but I believe that, let's define what kind of lifestyle you want and see if we can build a career around that. And if that is entrepreneurship, let's look at that because that is super important. Some people, like my business, for instance, my business is not a scalable business to one day I can sell because I don't sell anything. I really don't. And I'm fine with that because of the lifestyle that I want to do. Some people want to build up. I had a client who was a super, 6, 7, almost an 8-figure net worth in a career, and he quit his job, and now he owns a very successful roofing business in Virginia. Very successful roofing business, and it's a ton of work. But that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to build up a company, a corporation, and one day sell it. And so usually on that second or third call, when we're talking about lifestyle, we're talking about wealth and equity goals. Are you looking for a business that you want to grow and sell 10x one day? Or is this something that you're just fine? You perfect example, brick and mortar. If the business is closed, you're not making any money. And then you're relying on a general manager or employees to keep it going. But some people, that's the path they like, whether it be, a pet boarding business, a grooming business, a waxing studio, a eyelash studio. I mean, it's just crazy. What's fascinating though is that when a client decides to move into entrepreneurship, and most do not, 90% of them will openly admit that this is something they never would have researched on their own or ever thought they would ever do because they took the time. Let's just say it's a franchise that I have a network with and they're doing the discovery with a franchise. They're learning about that business. They're seeing how it can be scaled. And sometimes, oh, this is great, but this is not what I want to do. But really, it also comes down to not just the lifestyle, but dreams. We all talk about what are your goals? What are your goals? Well, let's talk about your dreams. Obviously, dreams without goals are just dreams. And I'll give you a quick example. I started working with this client a couple of years ago, young man, 26 years old. He's Salt Lake City, Utah. His dad was an entrepreneur, built up a very successful coffee business. He had moved from Arkansas back to Salt Lake to help his dad. His dad suddenly passed away during COVID, and his stepmother took over the business, and he was never going to be part owner of it. So we started talking because he wanted to get into a corporate career. And I said, listen, share one of your dreams with me. At 26 years old, He goes, I have a dream. And I said, what is it? He goes, I want to be able to afford to buy like 10, 20, 50, 100 acres of land in Utah and then school bus underprivileged kids out to it to teach them how to camp, how to live off the land, how to do things like that. At 26 was his dream. And I said, we're going to get there. And he was my client that went over a year because he was a technician fixing coffee machines and cafes and retirement homes. Now he has a very successful handyman business in Salt Lake City. And I talked to him the other day and he goes, Scott, I can't keep up with this. It's so busy. I said, focus on your dream. This is what's going to get there. And I'm going to be the guy driving the school bus as soon as that happens, pal. So it's really about let's focus on your dreams. Obviously, we need goals, but the lifestyle component is important as well. But as an entrepreneur like you are, it's not a free ATM machine in your kitchen. It's a lot of work. So I'm very clear with clients that this is going to take a lot of effort on your point. You are going to probably have to sacrifice a year of your current lifestyle to build that lifestyle of your future. Are you ready to do that? And if the answer is no, then we're going to pause.
And I think it's really important. And I really do love how you brought up that aspect of it's not a free ATM in your kitchen. It's really you have to work at it and build it up, but also the aspect of you have to give up your lifestyle. Like you have to sit there and be okay and go, something's gonna give. When you have to, invest your own money, your own time into things, your lifestyle is inevitably going to change. What are you comfortable with changing versus not changing? What are the things where you're like, this is going to be short term? Because I will tell you, there's things on my journey, because I did that my first year to, obviously my lifestyle changed. It will change for anyone going from corporate to starting their own job and not having investors. Like, you are putting your money, your time, your sweat equity into a business to get to a point. And I really said, okay, what are the things I need to pay every month? What are the things I'm spending every month that I don't need to do? Let me then sit in that and go, okay, is this really needed or is this a want? What and all those really hard decisions. And I will tell you, there are things that now, having to do that for a year, I'm like, I don't know why I thought these other things were really needed, because now they're not. You've lived, you've lived, and it has helped shape to what are the real priorities sometimes, or what are the real things you need, or what are you really willing to spend on something to really get that. And also knowing it from an ownership point of view, it can give you that different perspective. But I want to end, Scott, with a question about the fact, as you had mentioned, a lot of your clients do decide to go back into corporate or get a different job, whether it's in corporate or at a mom and pop business. For you, how do you navigate with them on that journey? Having those discussions of, okay, are you applying? How did the interview go? Here's potentially where you could critique or do something better, to get them from the point of, especially in a day and age where there are so many layoffs, from that point of not having a job or leaving a job to, okay, now you have your next footing on where you're going to be.
And most of my clients will go back into another job. If I will also say that 55 and over crowd, it is really tough right now, especially if you've been laid off, really tough. But some of my clients that are a little bit younger, I had a call yesterday with a client. He goes, I got an interview and I actually accepted, I'm accepting the job this week. And I said, well, congratulations. We're going to celebrate that. But understand, is this going to get you to that income, lifestyle, wealth and equity goals down the road? Well, yeah, I mean, and listen, I'll be crystal clear. Some people just need to get a job because they're running out of money, and so I'm not going to tell them not to. But if we haven't finished our discovery process yet, where we have gotten to, let's look at some entrepreneurship opportunities, and our journey's not over. We may have to pause it. We're not taking an off ramp. We're going to take a long detour. I would say that probably 50% of my clients that do take another job, go into another job, will ultimately come back to me and say, hey, you know what? The grass isn't greener at all. And I'm worried because now they're going off of layoffs. So I will I will celebrate that with my clients that they found another job. But I also will get a little uncomfortable and be like, listen, you were laid off from a job. There's nothing guaranteed about this new job. And I understand if you have to get a job to get some income in, or you need to make the missus happy, or you've got college tuition you're paying for, whatever it may be. But our journey doesn't end until they say, hey, this is over, or I've taken the time to look at some entrepreneurship opportunities. And like I said, it could take months.
Well, Scott, how can people get in touch with you if they want to connect with you?
The best place is, LinkedIn, search me out, Scott Kaiser, drop me a message there is good. Obviously my website at skaiser@esourcecoach.com. I'm sorry, skaiser.esource.com. And then my email, skaiser@esourcecoach.com. Or you can shoot me a text at 715-800-3797. I get all my text messages through that number. And that's the best place to get in touch with me.
Well, thank you, Scott, for all of your insight today.
Oh, this was fantastic. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
I've really enjoyed the conversation and diving deep into transitioning and what the unknown can really look like while discovering what you want your path to look like and what are those dreams and goals to get there. And a few of our key takeaways from today's conversation is success without fulfillment is ultimately failure. Scott mentioned this when he was answering the very first question we always ask of what does success mean and look like to you? And I think that is really true. When we look at success, it isn't the same is for everyone, but it's what is fulfilling us today. And when we don't have that fulfillment, it's really, are we succeeding in what we are doing now? As well as sometimes you need to have alignedness and have allies and not just friends. Your friends can turn into your allies, but sometimes you need allies who aren't friends, because ultimately, like Scott had mentioned, it's about the accountability piece. If everyone in your group is either supporting you and being the yes person, or people are saying no, then what real accountability do you have to get to your goals? Where's the accountability in that? So really ask yourself, who are my allies? As well as corporate America has an expiration date. I mean, we've all been seeing it more and more now. And I think Scott's point of that is so true, because we are all expendable. Whether we want to hear it or not, we are. And that includes corporate America, and what corporate America has looked like for so many years is ultimately changing. So keep that in mind, as well as what is your opportunity cost? I love this. This is probably one of my favorite things Scott had mentioned in conversation is, what is your opportunity cost, and what is that cost of not doing it? By not making the decision or not moving forward with something, you are losing out in different aspects. What are you willing to lose out on now or in the future? And what is the opportunity cost of doing it or not doing it? Really ask yourself that question, as well as don't listen to people who don't have what you want. This is one of my other favorite things that Scott brought up, because ultimately, unless someone has walked in your shoes or is at a point of where you want to get, it doesn't have to look, the exact same. The journey could look similar, or the end goal could look similar. And it could be like you want one piece of what they have, one little puzzle piece, and you're going to listen to them on that one puzzle piece and nothing else. And there's a puzzle piece from someone else. But unless ultimately they have something you want and have accomplished where you want to go on one of your many goals, you should really ask yourself, why am I listening to that individual? And what do I want to get out of that? This was a great episode with our top-notch guest, Scott Kaiser. Thank you for listening, and have a successful day.